because that is what this is about. This is me just opening up my office. You come on in, have a seat, and say, hey, what are we talking about? Here's a question. Can you help me with my youth ministry in some way? And if you don't know who I am, and if you're just coming across this live feed across YouTube or Facebook or anything like that, my name is Paul Turner from thediscipleproject.net, and I am here to help answer some of those questions that you may have about your youth ministry. And so, glad to have you. Hopefully everybody's coming in. And when you get here, if you would let me know where you're from, I would love to know where you're contacting me from. Leave me that down below, and let me know where you're living, what country, what city, what state, where are you from, what's happening where you're at, right? All right, cool. All right, so once again, going to be a good day today. I have youth tonight, so I'm excited about what we have going on there, and that will actually play into one of my questions. And what I try to do during office hours is I try to just answer 3 questions, unless you give me your questions in chat or in the comments. I take the 3 questions that I get and I try to answer them best of my ability, hopefully giving you lots of value. And if you are watching this in the future, be sure to go ahead and leave your questions down there below for the next time. And hopefully I'll be able to answer your question on the next office hours, which happens every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. So that being done, let's go ahead and get on with our first question. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're not a subscriber to the channel, would love for you to have you part of the community. Go and click that subscribe button, and you'll get videos like this in your inbox and all the time. And also, you'll click the bell notification icon there, and that way you'll know when I go live. Okay? All right. Cool. Let's go ahead and start. Okay? Question number 1. As we get into it here, let's see here. Question number 1. Here we go. Question number 1 says, hey guys, been trying to, draw more students on Wednesday night. Not been doing great at it. What do you think? What are some ideas that you have? And that is the age-old question, is it not? How do we get more students to show up on a Wednesday night? That's the key, right? So I have a few ideas. I think there's several ways. So the first way, I think, obviously, is when I ask students, I say, hey, listen, why don't you, I've learned not to do this, but we want to say, hey guys, bring your friends. And what I have found out is that a lot of our students don't think they have any friends. So when they ask, they say, well, I don't have any friends. Well, then I changed my methodology. I changed what I was doing. I said, okay, invite somebody you know to church tonight. Invite somebody you know to youth. Now, look, these people may not be your friends, but you do know them, and you could become their friend by inviting them to youth. And so in broadening the scope of what a student what you're asking a student to do, you're actually giving room for the Holy Spirit to move, right? You're saying, look, don't just talk to your friends, talk to anybody that the Holy Spirit leads you to, right? If you know somebody kind of casually in your math class, well, go ahead and invite them. If you know somebody, that's kind of on your ball team, but they're not your friend per se, but the Lord leads you to invite them, go ahead and invite them. And I think that's the most natural way. Listen, if the students in your group are believers, if they're followers of Jesus, or they say they are, right, then you want to make it as natural for them as possible. You don't want to get them on the hype train. You just want to say, hey, here's students that out of your own heart, because you believe that this youth program, this youth meeting that I'm asking you to come to, is worth that time for you. It's worth saying, look, you know young people who need to be a part of this community, who need to be a part of this group. And that is my approach to that, as far as trying to ask students to come, right? The second thing I do, I first appeal to their natural, or not natural, but their, I appeal to their deepest part of their heart that says, look, you guys come to this group because you feel a part of this community. And I ask them, how many people do you know could use a community like this? where they can come in, ask questions, explore faith, grow in their faith if they're a Christian and don't have a place to grow. So I want to appeal to a student's desire to see their friends come to Christ. That's the first thing I want to do. The thing I do next is I say, okay, guys, so I would say, look, if you're having trouble growing or getting kids to show up on a Wednesday night, is talk to your youth rather than try to go off into a lab somewhere and try to figure this thing out and say, okay, I'm going to come up with 50 different ways to do this, and I'm going to have all this, and we're going to do that, and you're coming, and then you come in like a car salesman, and you have to sell it to your kids. Guys, let me tell you what we're going to do, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have that for you, and we come into this big hype type of deal. The better thing to do, I believe, is if you would plan with your students. Say, guys, what would you like me to do? What could we plan together that would be enticing to your friends, to make you want to invite your friends? Say, Paul, if we would do this, I would invite 10 of my friends. If you did this, Paul, I promise you, I would bring us back. Now look, you take that with a grain of salt, by the way. Students say a lot of things, right? Hey, Cameron. Students say a lot of things, but I want them to be excited, right? Rather than them getting excited about something I planned, I want them to be excited about something we've planned, something we've done together. Because now it's not just my idea, it's their idea as well. It's hard to get excited about somebody else's idea sometimes. And I think what is key for young people is that you give them the tools, because they know what's going on then, right? When you plan it with them, you are putting it into their hands as well. They know what's going on. They know what food's going to be there. They know what games are going to be played. They know what's going to happen. And so when you plan with them, that gives them the tools to then invite somebody else versus, hey, what do you invite your friends to this event? Well, what is this event? Well, I don't know. It's just something my youth pastor cooked up, right? So I think it's much better that if you're having a struggle trying to build that Wednesday night, and everybody, by the way, everybody has a problem with that. Unless you're big churches have struggles with that, right? They're doing a fraction of what they would normally do, right? Post-pandemic. And so if you're struggling, don't think that, oh, it's only me. It's not only you. It's a lot of churches. It's a lot of people. So we're all doing it, right? I have the same struggle. I'm no different. I do the same planning with my students to say, okay, what are we doing tonight? Because I want them to be involved in the process. I don't want to come off and be the car salesman where I have to sell you on the program. If you tell me you're a believer and you love Jesus, great. This would be a great place to invite your friends to either discover the Lord or grow in the Lord. Otherwise, I release you to share your faith outside this group, right? This is a training ground for you to learn how to do that, and I release you to do that. It's the metrics sometimes that get us because, it depends what we're paid for, right? If your pastor is paying you to grow the group and you're struggling to grow the group, well, that's a problem, right? If you're being paid to disciple your group and the pressure to not explode beyond a normal or idea of what your youth group, if you're in a church of 30 or 40 or 50 and your pastor or your board wants you to have 100, I'm going to say that's unreasonable. That's an unreasonable amount of things there. But I believe every youth ministry can steadily grow. I believe every youth ministry can build. When you have one extra person come, two people, in these ones and twos, and listen, you want to do big events, right? You want to have some big things go on, and plan that with your students. And then that way, I think you're going to get a better event. You're going to get something that is going to be collective. It is not going to be you trying to pitch things to them. It's going to be something that they can get excited about, something you can get excited about. You give out roles and responsibilities to make the event happen. And then you release them and say, hey guys, count down this many weeks to this many weeks to this one, next week is this, right? So you're helping them, be able to promote it because you've planned it with them and you've given it enough time and you've expanded the borders of who they should invite. Their friends, right? No, invite people you know. Who do you know? Family members that you have cousins around the corner? Invite your cousins. If they're the same, if they're teenagers, invite them, right? They could be people like that. So that is my thought behind that. And I will give you one thing though. that I will tell you about, that I do have a resource if you're interested, and that is a resource called Tribes. If you want to go that route, if you want to go the route of, hey, I want to do something, plan something with my students, where every week is an activity, every week is, you're doing kind of a team building thing where, okay, well, Paul, I only have 10 kids. Okay, well, great. 5 on this team, 5 on that team. And then you build it, and then you give a prize and all that kind of good stuff. If you want to do that, this is great for summer, but it's also great for fall. It's a great way to say, hey, we're having this competition. We'd love you to come. We get points, so forth and so on. And then at the end, we get this. I've done it during the summertime, and I gave away a limo ride and took my kids bowling. It was fantastic. Had a great time. Had a great group show up. And we did see some students show up. Right? So I think if you're interested in something like this, then I'll put a link down below. Also, there's most of the curriculum that I write has some sort of game or activity or things like that. So if you're not used to doing that, I include that. But I also have a series called Challenge Accepted, which is 4 weeks on the challenge of following Jesus. And so I have challenges every week that you can do, that you can invite students to be a part of. And so, yeah, if you're interested in that and you're struggling to get students to show up, and you want something that's already prepackaged, something that's already there that you can just kind of follow along with. Hey, by the way, that Tribes comes with an audio coaching of me giving you the ideas, me helping you through the process, and you can check that out for yourself, okay? All right, so that is how I think to approach on getting students to come on a Wednesday night. Is you have to pray, you have to trust the Holy Spirit, you have to trust your students, you have to plan with them, and you have to be able to release some things from your hands into their hands so that they can feel responsible for their own peers and not you feeling responsible for their peers. Amen? Okay, let's move on. Let's go on to question number 2. Okay, question number 2. What do you think about the youth meeting with adults as part of your youth service, or for part of your youth service? Well, that's an interesting question that's come up, because that's actually what we do. And the reason we do that as a youth ministry, and why I think it's important for adults and students to be together. And I think this is especially effective in smaller churches. If you're under 100 and you still have a Wednesday night, and you got the 20 or 30 people that show up on a Wednesday night for your adults, and you have 5 to 10 students that are there, man, put that group together and figure out a Wednesday night dynamic with your pastor to be able to have a service together, an intergenerational service, which can serve both the youth and the adults. To me, that is the picture of win-win, because my students now, I said, look, and I work together with my worship pastor that's with us, and also one of the parents, and said, hey, why don't we just do this? Because we were having worship leader come down and lead worship for us downstairs. He said, well, look, why don't we just come upstairs and we'll join in worship, and why don't we have some students, because the worship leader is leading worship by themselves up front. I said, well, why don't the students just help you? Why don't the students just help you do this? And so we came up with a plan where the students now, we participate every week. That is, we have worship, intergenerational worship together. Tonight, we're actually doing the service. We're doing the whole service. I'm going to be able to speak, and then the students are doing a little skit, and they're leading worship. So it's very much a together, right? It's really demonstrating that we are the church. We are all together the church. And I think it's a great benefit to our students to be in relationship with these adults. And I think it's of great benefit for these adults to be in connection with these students. Because if you have a new adult there, well, then they get to see, look, that we have an active youth ministry. They're participating. And I think it's great. So my answer to that question is, if you have opportunity, even if it's just once a month, say, hey, look, our students will be willing to come up and lead worship. And maybe you as a youth pastor, you have some, worship leading skills. You can play a guitar or piano or whatever you may do. And you're going to practice. That gives you another opportunity to practice with your students. You can say, hey, guys, we're going to practice. We know that we have this Wednesday night coming up, and you can call it Intergen or something like that. Come up with a clever name for a collective worship service of intergenerational folks. And then you have another opportunity to then work with your students to be able to say, okay, we have another discipleship moment here. Not only am I 3 weeks out of the month are we teaching, doing our normal kind of youth programming thing, but we're also saying on sometime in between there, or even as a part of your Wednesday night, you're saying, hey guys, don't forget we have these worship songs coming up. We're going to have practice together, and it gives you another opportunity to invest in your students, right? But it also gives your students an expression. They're able to express. You find kids that can sing, kids that can play instruments that can help lead worship. You have students who can come up and read scripture for you. And once again, it becomes a collective experience that I think the church is lacking today. Because we have separated, because we have youth over here and adults over here. They don't know each other. And I think it's a great opportunity for both students and adults to get to know each other on that level, because the older people in your church want to see younger people leading. They just do. It encourages them. It causes them to say, hey, you know what? This church has a future. This church has some great young people in it, and they get to talk about that. The adults do. When they say they went to this intergenerational service, they're talking about it to people, and they're letting people know, hey, this is what our church does. Our church believes that we're one church. Adults, youth, one night a month. We do it every week. Doesn't matter. Whatever you choose to do, right? I think it becomes a great opportunity that if you could find a way to do it, I would strongly encourage you to do it. All right. Before we get into question number 3, I do want to tell you about this. I do have a new series out called Do the Math. Okay? Do the Math. Okay? And Do the Math is a 4-week series. And this is a great back to school type of thing, that if you are interested in it, it is a 4 weeks where I go through the basic plus, minus, division, and multiplication. So the 4 lessons take you through that, and the 4 lessons will be able to basically says, look, it's a Christian living series, right? What do you add to your life? What do you subtract from your life? Where is the dividing line, right? I talk about division in the good sense of saying, look, that we ought to be separate or divided from some of the things that we have in this world, right? We should be divided from, dividing truth from a lie. We should divide the world from, what God is doing, right? There is a dividing line there, and we should be on the best side, obviously, is be on the Lord's side, right? Not straddling in the middle. So there's that good part of it. And then multiplication, I did multiplication last because it's a great way to introduce your students to say, hey, by the way, we should be making disciples. We should be multiplying. Okay. And so I put in some fun math games, things of that nature. So every week you have something that is fun to do, and I will put a link down in the show notes there if you're interested in Do the Math, or you can have a free lesson, by the way. And the free lesson will be, you can just get, the first one, get addition, and say, we'll try it out, see what it's like, right? So go ahead, and there'll be a link down below for that. You can go ahead and download a free lesson, the addition lesson, and then kick the tires and say, hey, we'll try this lesson, and if this goes well, all you got, then we'll get the rest of them, right? Or if you say, well, we want it, Paul, just go ahead and support you. This is a great way to support the channel. It's a great way to support the ministry here and letting me come live to you and all kinds of other things that I have going on, but it's a great way to do that. All you have to do is sign up for the newsletter, and there it is right there, free lesson for you, okay? All right. Let's move on. How about we go to the third question and we start to land this plane? Any questions from you guys? Let me know if you have a youth ministry question. Feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat there. If you're watching it later, you can always leave it in the comments. But if you have a question about youth ministry, have a question about planning, programming, any of the things. Anything youth ministry related or ministry related, happy to answer the question if I can, okay? So feel free to do that. I will see the question because I can see it right here, and I will jump right on it, okay? All right, last but not least is, what do you think about communion, okay? What do you think about communion? What do you think about doing communion with the youth, Paul? Well, I got to say, I am for it. I seem to see some, I don't know, difference of opinion, which is okay. Nothing wrong with a difference of opinion. Okay, that a difference of opinion is where you say, okay, some people say that only the youth should have communion with adults or in the main service or as a family time. Nothing wrong with that. The challenge that I have with that, which I am for it, I was in a church where we had communion first of all, I grew up Catholic, so I'm used to having communion every week anyway, growing up. Then I was in a church. I was in a Pentecostal church, Assembly of God church, where we had communion every week for a very long time, and so we were participating in that. So I value communion. I think it's a sacrament. It's a staple of Christian faith. The challenge of doing it, for me at least, doing it only when the congregation does it, is that there's a lot of students who don't know what it is, who don't know the value of it, who don't understand what communion is all, and they're never going to show up on a Sunday for that communion service. And so I've had communion with students, and once again, I think you have to treat communion with absolute respect, right? So for me, if I'm with students who I think they're new-ish, I won't spring it on them per se. In fact, I would say, look, if you're unsure as to whether or not you want to take communion, go ahead and that's okay. You don't have to take communion with us tonight. If you want to take communion, you're welcome to do so, but let me explain, right? So if you're dealing with a group you've never done communion with youth before, take a week to teach on it. Take a week to really kind of break it down. Take a week to be able to explain to them, what exactly is going on here. Because if they don't know, and you start talking about the body and the blood of Christ and so forth, that to a new person, that's like, what are we talking about? Make sure you explain it well. Make sure you take time to really break it down and say, what is a communion for? Who is it for? Why do we do this? What are we celebrating? And it really becomes a great dynamic of discipleship, of worship, of that family time together amongst the group, sharing in something like that. So like I said, I think it's great, and I don't do it every week with my youth, but there are times that we do have it, and so I will make sure to explain to them and treat it with reverence and so forth, because you never want communion or anything like that to be disrespected or treated as common, right? You want them to understand the perspective on it. You want them to be able to do that, and so my encouragement is, yes, do it with youth, because I think it's an important element that a lot of students won't understand, and I think they need to see it in that element with their peers, so that they can understand it better and participate if they want to. We don't want them participating if they're unsure about it, if they don't know if they're a believer or not, if they don't know, and say, look, it's okay if you don't take it. In fact, we'd encourage you maybe not to take it if you're not quite sure in your faith yet. Take some time, right? And then the next time we have it, yes, participate with us. We think it's great. We think it's great that you want to participate with us. But I think it becomes a great teachable moment for the young people in your group to experience communion with you. And if you say, look, we're just going to do it with that, then that's fine too. Do it with the adults. That's okay too. Nothing wrong with that. But like I said, I am pro communion with youth. I have said it. That's it. I have come out with my take. Okay. It's not a hot take. I don't think. I think there's plenty of people that have communion with their youth. But anyway, yes, have communion with your youth. Okay. All right, as we start to land the plane here, I have one last thing just to share with you. First of all, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. I appreciate you being a part. I would encourage you with two things. Number one, I have two things that are on sale right now. One is I have a fall bundle, okay? I have a fall bundle, and the fall bundle has a ton of resources in it. If you're not equipped yet for the fall and you're needing lessons, and the difference is we have the fall bundle, which is, I'll show you right here. If I can bring this up. There we go. And the fall bundle here is, I can show it to you if I get rid of that. Okay, you have all kinds of things there that you can get that are in the store here. This is in my store, and if I can figure out where my where my stuff is, here we go. Oh, there we go. I'm looking for a little button here. There we go. That you can see here. There in this bundle here, there is a ton of resources. Okay, there's all kinds of things in there. There's midweek messages. You're going to get 12, 14, 15 lessons right there. Stuff on Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas resources. Then I have resources for you, the youth pastor, things like squad goals, youth meeting playbook, a 40-day devotional, a book that I've written called Prepare for Impact. And then you have some fun things like escape rooms and Epic Nerf Night Guide and things of that nature, and then some discipleship resources. And so if this is of interest to you, then I'm going to encourage you. There'll be a link down in the show notes there. You can check it out. It's gumroad.com/youthmenresources, and you can be able to check that out. And then one other one I will show you, and that is the Back to School bundle. And that's 18 weeks, and that is just mostly pure curriculum, but there's other resources in there. Let me show you real quick. The Back to School resource bundle has some good stuff in it as well. Let me bring that up, make it a little bit bigger, and then I can do that. And then in here, in this particular resource, you have like I said, the 4 weeks, you have a series, 4 weeks worth of Transformed, How God Recycles Our Lives, Stand Alone Together, Dealing with Loneliness, 4 weeks on Shine a Light, Being a Light to the World. That's 12 weeks worth of messages, slides, illustrations, social media graphics, playlists, all that kind of good stuff. And then I throw in a little bit more, right? You're going to get the Youth Meeting Playbook. I do a 3-week series on failure, 3 weeks on Small Things, Big Difference. That's up to 18 weeks of lessons. And then you have a few other things. One thing is I'm going to throw in for this package is I'm going to give you a 30-minute coaching. If you get that, you say, hey, I would love to connect with you, Paul, and talk for 30 minutes on how to use this curriculum. What is the best way to use it? I have some questions about youth ministry and programming. How can I do this? And I want to be able to help you with that. And then one last thing, there's 4 weeks. I throw in the Do the Math series, okay? What I talked about earlier. And so if you are interested in that, that is for you as well. All right. Well, that is our time together, guys. Like I said, if you have any questions at all, I'd be happy to help you, happy to be a part of helping you plan your youth ministry, helping you answer the hard questions. There are hard questions in youth ministry. Be glad to help you with that. And once again, leave some comments down below. If you have questions, comments, anything like that, glad to hear from you. Otherwise, guys, super excited to be with you. Thank you for joining me today. Catch me next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that will be our time together to get together and answer some more questions about youth ministry. You can join me for office hours then. And until then, guys, you guys have an awesome, awesome youth meeting tonight. All right? We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day, everybody. Bye.